Good evening, 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 and good evening. Welcome to Weather Brains episode number 574 for the 16th of January, 2017. This is the pre-show, that magical part of the program where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. So,
tonight's Weather Brains is brought to you by Robitussin.
wow.
The
Now, is that
official cough syrup of Weather Brains.
No, it's cough syrup. I don't know if that was. I forgot what that was for.
What did you think it was for, Jim?
Well, I didn't know if it was for hemorrhoids or for
might work for that too. I don't know.
Now, Brian, what that Preparation H hemorrhoid cream is good for? It's the eyes, these bags under your eyes. Ooh. So I'm just saying, if you work a really long shift and you're just looking rough, like I'm looking right now, get some Preparation H, and you put it up under your eyes, and you look just like you have a youthful glow all of a sudden. So
Brian keeps it in the Storm Chaser, but it's not for that purpose.
I can say with a great deal of honesty that I've never used it on either end.
Me either. Look what I have, James. Brian, look.
Never used it. Oh, an Apple Watch. Ooh. Never used it on either end. That's already a show title.
There you go.
So how many calories, Bill? Let's compare calories today.
No, I don't know how to do calories.
Well, just press activity, the little circles, the concentric circles thing.
I got that.
And then slide up, and you'll see how your calories burned, your minutes of exercise, and how many hours you've been standing today.
Well, I have 116% of my stand goal, but only 20% of my exercise goal because I was an office potato all day today.
So how many calories? Well, I want a number.
Only 285 of my 680 goal. So not good.
I'm at 1,016.
Wow.
Exercise for 92 minutes.
Wow.
You're making us all look bad, James.
Well, no, look, the number would be bad on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do that workout over here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So this was a workout day.
Look what I have back here, though. Can you see that?
See a bald head.
Yeah, above that.
Oh, you got some kind of workout thing over there?
It's a workout bicycle desk. You can sit at it and work.
Ooh.
It doesn't travel well to the office, so.
So I got a cool story about the workout place last week. So I was in there, and a guy came up, started talking to me, and kind of a large, beastly man.
I hope he's not watching.
And I'm thinking, I didn't quite know who he was, and the guy that's the trainer guy said, "Hey, come here. Do you know who that is?" And I said, "No." Turns out it's the new starting first baseman for the Boston Red Sox,
Wow.
Mitch Moreland, who was with the Rangers, and Big Papi Ortiz retired.
Wow.
And looks like they're going to put Ramirez maybe at third. They're not going to play him at first base, and they have brought him in as the first baseman. So I now have a really good player connection with the Red Sox.
You'll be sitting in the dugout.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably will.
Mitch, fix me up, man. And the truth is, man, you know more about Boston than I do right now because, and he's probably right. But I said, look, we'll get up there in probably first week in August or something. So just at least acknowledge us. If nothing else, maybe a slight little tip of the cap or a little finger wave. Or, of course, you could flip me the finger, and that maybe not the finger I'm wanting, but
maybe he can play the Weather Brain song as his walk-up music.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Very,
throw you a ball from third base.
Yeah, very nice guy. Very nice guy. He played his high school ball. He's from Mississippi, and he trains here. This place where I work out, they got some studs over there, man. It's like this, it's all NFL players because they're back now, or MLB players getting ready to report, and it's just like this plethora of these major league stars down there. But anyway, he played his college baseball. Mitch played his college baseball at Mississippi State. He's a Bulldog.
There you go. A lot of great ones out of Mississippi State.
we automatically had some things to talk about there. But very, very nice guy. We had a great conversation.
No, I got
Another guy that's with the Rangers down there, and all the NFL guys are back. Saw Joe Webb the other day. Webb plays for the Carolina Panthers, and I chewed him out because he played at UAB, and I was coaching a UAB alumni game, and he was going to be my quarterback, and he didn't show up. I said, Webb, what's it? You didn't call, you didn't write, you didn't send me a text message, you didn't say you love me. You just stiffed me. You didn't show up, man. I'm fining you $50,000, and we'll see how long it takes to collect that. No, Joe's a great guy. We had some good laughs down there. So Kevin, we got this mysterious note from Kevin that he's working mornings. What is it with no explanation? I mean, I've been working at this station for 20 years, and I worked one morning shift. It was an emergency. I mean, I worked my shift, in the night shift, and I stayed and worked the morning shift because of a situation. So what's the deal with that? Anybody know?
Nope. Saw the same message you did.
That was very mysterious. And Rick, he says he had to go see a man about a dog. What?
Family dinner.
He's got a birthday dinner.
I think he's sick of the haters. I think the haters got on these guys over this ice storm. And look, man, it is nothing but compassion for me, because trust me that, the haters follow me, but boy, it looked like it was just brutal. The attacks on not only the TV guys, but the weather service guys in Norman, in Oklahoma City, because
it didn't happen.
Right. It was a kind of a non-event. And
how can people get mad when it's a non-event?
Trust me, they do. It's bad. And I just have compassion for all the TV guys and the weather service, and it's just bad. And in the case, and again, I'd love to hear. We'll hear from Rick next week on that, in terms of, and I'm sure it was either a little placement error or, I don't know the details. I was so busy I didn't get a chance to fully dive into it, but I saw some banter and some traffic about the bust, and even the guys in Kansas City took some heat, because they moved the Chiefs game to Sunday night because of an ice storm, and I think people in their mind, I don't know what they think an ice storm means. It's like they're expecting these 5-inch, ice accumulation all over the place, and I don't know. I'd like to hear from some of the guys in Kansas City and Oklahoma City over the situation this weekend. But no doubt there was a lot of ice. I mean, I saw.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of pictures out there. If you didn't get the ice, you were lucky.
I mean, so some of the ice.
And if there were any weather event I wanted to miss, it would be an ice storm.
Oh yes.
Oh, good gracious!
And we are so overdue here.
Oh no, you just jinxed us, Brian.
I know it.
Yeah, my mind goes back to 82.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was going to be fired. I mean, I had been on TV here for 3 years, and it started early. It started way early, and
everybody missed that though.
Well, yeah, but then look, I was a kid. I mean, I thought. I mean, all I saw was this mass chaos in the streets. I saw, it was horrible. I mean, it was just horrible. I mean, this was bad, and we couldn't get off the mountain for 4 days, and it just. I don't know, but they didn't fire me, so it worked out.
Lucky for them. I hear Jesse. Hey, Jesse.
Yes. Hey, how's it going? Hanging in there. Drying out.
Yeah, just to get ready to get wet again, huh?
Indeed.
More rain and snow on the way.
Jess, this could be the worst hour of your life, so thanks for sacrificing your time.
He's experienced.
Yeah, you've been down this road before. You can handle this. You handle a bunch of weather goobers here.
Quite a
thanks for
difference
coming.
between
Not many goobers tonight, just us goobers.
Yeah, we're kind of thin. It's a the holiday here, and some of our folks are out. So the true weather weenies show up on the holidays. So yeah, I'm gonna have to wait. If we're here, we can start, but I have to wait until the TV starts. So we're about 2 minutes away. What have I not done?
You haven't said something outrageous yet.
Yeah, no, this day just seems, I don't know. Like I told him, Bill, I had to get up like 3:30 to do the morning production to go do an event downtown Birmingham. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm out of phase or something here. I'm totally out of phase. But tomorrow will be more of a normal day. And then Wednesday and Thursday, I'm not working television. I've got a little trip. I got a funny feeling. I guess I can talk about it while we're doing the pre-show here. You know who the consultant's going to be at this thing? It's Frank Magid.
Oh, no. He's going to tell you to track.
I was about to say, somebody's head's going to blow up. I don't know if it's going to be mine or theirs. They've got me speaking Wednesday evening. And what I'm going to do, they want me to talk about social media. And the truth is, I don't know anything about social media. I don't. I really don't. You know, they say, well, you've got some good numbers. Well, look, you just treat people right. It's the same as treating people right in person. But what I'm going to do is hijack that thing and talk about, I'm going to go down this path, and I'm going to talk about, as a weather enterprise, we need to provide a simple, unified message. And I'm going to challenge every one of these guys in that room where we are not going to go issue our own warnings. We are not going to do our own proprietary indices, because if every station does their own warnings and their own indices, it is mass confusion and somebody's going to get killed. And I am not going to have blood on my hands. And hello. We're about to hit the television side. Good evening, friends. Yes, welcome to Weather Brains, the pre-show.
If they fire you in Tampa, will they give you the ticket back?
Yeah, probably not. I'll just stay down there and hang out on Clearwater Beach. But we are on television.
All right.
My guests are all here. So let's get this thing going here. And we have not been on TV on Monday night for a few weeks. I think it was the last year, maybe the last time we did a Monday night show. So
sounds so long ago.
It was before Christmas.
Really. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is Weather Brains, episode number 574 for the 16th of January, 2017. It's the weekly show all about weather. You know, for a long time, I used to say this is the greatest weather podcast in the universe because this is the only weather podcast. But now I think there are probably 4 dozen of them. In fact, there's an
association of them.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to get everybody together. And this is, look, we don't mind. Great. It's the more the merrier. It's not like, we welcome all weather podcasts. But
I prefer the Monopoly, actually.
Yeah, we started this back. We were out there by ourselves. I mean, we had this whole thing to ourselves. But whatever. We're glad you're here. And this is a holiday for many, not for all. And accordingly, a lot of our people are out. We had this really mysterious message from Kevin Selly, who is in Wichita Falls, Texas. And he said he's working mornings this week.
If he's working mornings, who's working his shift?
That's right. That's the next question. I mean, what are you working, like 24 hours a day or what here? That doesn't make any sense. So whatever, Kevin is out, and Rick Smith.
He's just tough.
Maybe he's a tough man. Rick Smith, who's the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma, is out tonight. Where's the lovely Aubrey?
Haven't heard.
Maybe I got an auto reply from the show notes to her. So
well, maybe she's taking the day off. But look, hey, the real weather, the weather warriors are here, and we got Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist, longtime WCM, warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Brian retired. He came over to the dark side.
The dark
Brian,
side.
How dark is it on this side?
Actually, the bright lights in the studio are pretty bright. It's not dark at all.
Yeah, it's pretty illuminous in this little room here. That's one thing about TV, a lot of lights. So let me ask you this now. Let's just so you worked all that time at the Weather Service. You worked in TV for a long time. What would you say was your favorite, Weather Service or television? Pick
Oh
it.
God, that's impossible to answer.
It's like apples and that's not a fair. It's not. It's like apples
Yeah,
and
because
oranges.
it's not apples and apples. It's apples and oranges. So,
Yeah.
but I have to say there is one common thread through both of them that has kept my interest and been very interesting, and that is trying to do a good job in communicating anticipated weather as well as information on severe weather. So there's a common thread in there of communicating that kind of information. So that's a challenge on both sides of the fence.
And I think there's more things that really unite us now that we didn't have maybe when you worked for the Weather Service because of the social media aspect and the fact that the Weather Service is basically a broadcaster. In fact, I was looking at the Weather Service in Norman Facebook page, and I want to say,
I bet they had a lot.
they had a lot of people that follow that page. In fact, let me my fat fingers working on this. They have a total of they make it so hard to find these numbers now. It used to be so easy. Here it 212,678, almost 250,000
Followers?
Yes.
Wow, that puts my 4,000 to shame, doesn't it? I think I came up in the Weather Service during a time when the Weather Service visibility was increasing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt
and you mentioned it when social media came in. I think the increase in visibility of the Weather Service really blossomed, and then of course with the advent of Doppler radar and how costly it is to run one of those, many television stations making or opting to use the Weather Service network instead of having their own. So we went away from the mega Doppler 300,000 range radar to, we're all using the same one.
Yeah, that's true. But again, I think the roles have changed, and I think what our friends at the Weather Service are realizing they're public figures now. I mean,
they are.
You find people on the street that they'll know the MIC and the WCM and the forecasters. They know the guys at SPC, know the guys at the Hurricane Center by nature of the direct channel from social media. So anyway, we'll talk to our guest about that because we do have an official MIC. Bill Murray, bring our guest in, please, sir.
Yeah, James, tonight's show is brought to you by Robitussin, the official cough medicine of Weatherbrain.
This is embarrassing. During the pre-show, I thought that was hemorrhoid cream. So I thought, Bill, you okay? You need to stand up and do the show here?
Yeah, I'm sitting on one of those little donut rings.
Can we bill the Robitussin company for an ad?
We can send it to them. I don't know if they'll pay it or
I
not.
had to say, after this, I guarantee you they're not going to pay it.
Yeah, they've been mistaken for hemorrhoid cream.
I guess so.
Yeah, I had to run out for a second there because I remembered I had a WeatherWise magazine from 2010 that was about the weather of California, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight with the meteorologist in charge from the National Weather Service in San Francisco and Monterey, Jesus Harrow. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Thank you for joining us. I know you're 2.5 hours behind, or 2 hours out there behind us in California, so not a little earlier for you than it is for us here in the Central Time Zone. But talk about the weather y'all been having, Jesse. It's been interesting.
Oh yeah, it's been quite the experience the past week and a half. Of course, we had an 8-day period from January 2nd through the 10th where we were just clobbered by 3 distinct atmospheric river events, which, when you look at them in retrospect, you can coalesce them into one event. And they just wreaked havoc with our state in terms of producing rainfall and snowfall. We've had locations in our area of responsibility that have had between 20 and 30 inches of rain in that period. We actually have a gauge in the Santa Lucia Mountains, that's in southern Monterey County, close to Big Sur, that has had almost 35 inches of rain since the beginning of the year.
Wow.
And, that same storm also dumped anywhere from 6 to 12 feet of snow into Sierra Nevada. So it was a tremendous series of atmospheric river that impacted our region, and of course it produced everything that you would expect in terms of flooding and transportation issues, shutting down several highways. And for a state that has been drought stricken like ours has been for the past 6 years, it was certainly to that type of operation. We were out of practice, to say the least, because we hadn't faced that sort of thing in quite a while. So certainly a tremendous event, certainly significant in producing issues and impacts across our area.
So how far in advance did you recognize what was setting up, Jesse, and how did the forecast unfold?
We saw it coming, I think it's safe to say, 5 to 7 days ahead of time. Thankfully, with regard to atmospheric rivers, we can see them coming, well in advance. And so we had a good feel for what was going to happen. The tricky issue with atmospheric rivers is where exactly are they going to, for lack of a better term, make landfall, and what's going to be the area that's going to be most significantly impacted. So we knew it was going to be bad. We just couldn't pinpoint where until we were maybe 24 to 48 hours out. Then we had a really good idea.
So our friend Sheldon Kusselson has educated us over the years about atmospheric rivers. And so talk about those for a minute. Maybe our audience that might not be as familiar with it. So talk about what they are and how they happen.
Well, colloquially over the years, people have referred to them as pineapple expresses. But essentially, you have a flow pattern that sets up over the Eastern Pacific, and that flow pattern, depending on how things have set up and with regard to moisture sources across the subtropics, can sometimes tap into really significant streams of moisture pulled up into the flow and brought across our area with very high precipitable water values, 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches across broad streams stretching for hundreds of miles. And when those low pressure systems and that flow brings that very moist air across our area, it gets wrung out by our coastal mountains along the California coast and also the Sierra Nevada. It's a classic orographic flow type of event where the moist air is flowing perpendicular to the orientation of the mountains, and all that moisture just gets wrung out through orographic lift as the moist air goes up the mountainside, and you get the cooling and the condensing, the forming of the clouds and the precipitation. And you also have classic rain shadow effects on the other sides of the mountain ranges. So it's a very efficient process, a ton of moist air coming across the central part of the state and just getting wrung out by our mountain ranges. And you get prolific amounts of rainfall and snowfall and of course all the flooding and issues you would expect afterwards.
So is, I guess, west of the San Joaquin Valley, is there really a mountain range there, or is that just more a hilly area sort of along the coast?
Well, we have coastal ranges, in Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, up extending north of the north of the city of San Francisco into what's known as the North Bay. And those mountains, in terms of stature and height, pale in comparison to the Sierra Nevada, of course, but nevertheless, it's enough of an orographic barrier to, result in those processes occurring. And certainly, when you're getting 20 to 30 inches of rain in these ranges and during the course of a week, and then on the lee side of the ranges, you get an inch or two, it's a pretty classic orographic impact and orographic effect that's taking place.
So which cities are in your CWA there that most of our listeners will have heard of? Jesse?
Oh, well, our CWA encompasses the vast majority of the San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose combined statistical area. And it goes northward into Marin, Napa, Sonoma counties, what most people associate with wine country in California. And it stretches south to Monterey County and San Benito County. And Monterey County is where you'll find Big Sur and the Big Sur coastline. So all total, we serve about 8 to 8.5 million people in that kind of skinny county warning area that we have. So it's a tremendous challenge in terms of messaging, in terms of successful outreach to all of our stakeholder communities, and the diversity that is present in this people that we serve is staggering. So it's a very challenging county warning area to forecast for. And that doesn't even take into account all the microclimates that we have in place here.
Now, Tahoe belongs to Reno, right?
Yes, the Tahoe area belongs to the Reno office.
So what's the elevation change across your CWA from lowest to highest? I mean, I know lowest is going to be around sea level, but
yeah.
You know, over here, our highest point in Alabama is Mount Cheaha at 2,407 feet, which is probably going to be very small compared to what you're speaking of. But what is it?
Yeah, in our area, you know, a lot of coastal mountains, their peaks are 5,000 to 6,000 feet. Generally, that's what we're looking at. When you really see the microclimate issue come into play is during the summer when our marine layer sets up. And that is just a fascinating meteorological occurrence because, you know, we'll have areas that, you know, we have this really cool air that moves into certain areas and only extends up to certain elevations. And,
right.
You know, under the marine layer, you'll have cloudy conditions, maybe some drizzle, temperatures in the 50s. And above the marine layer, you have temperatures in the 80s and 90s with, you know, the low teens or even single digits. So you can experience 20, 30, even 40-degree temperature swings in really short distances. And that's a fascinating occurrence to observe and also to forecast.
My wife and I went to San Francisco for our 25th wedding anniversary, and one of the best pieces of advice we got was carry your jacket at all times. And that was good advice because, you know, when we went from the hotel down onto the Bayside, it did change on the order of 10 or 20 degrees.
So what did Mark Twain say, Bill Murray? You probably remember that one. The coldest
summer you ever the coldest winter. Yeah, was
winter I ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco.
Yeah.
We went to a San Francisco Giants game.
I've never been colder.
And this was in June, and my wife, her eyeballs, I thought were going to freeze. Now, for guys, you know, it's okay. I mean, I thought it was refreshing because where we're from, it's hot and it's muggy, and it was so refreshing. But I will say it was pretty brisk on a June evening out there on the bay at the park. That was cold.
Well, Jesse, I have a burning question. Did the tunnel tree, was that in your county warning area?
No, that was in, I believe, Hanford's
okay.
county warning area, the San Joaquin Valley office. And yeah, truly a sad occurrence for that, you know, certainly have a fondness for these giant sequoias and giant redwoods. And, you know, we had one fall small city near Santa Cruz called Aptos, and there was a large redwood that was about, I think, 1,000 years old that also fell. You know, you can't help but be a fan of these tremendous forests and these tremendous trees, and
yes,
to see that happens.
Yeah, with those. Well, let me ask you a question about that. I've been interested in following it, but I'm curious. Nobody has said whether it came down because of the wind or if it was a result of the wet ground and some wind. Do you know? I mean, since it's not your county warning area, probably not, but maybe you've heard more than.
Nothing has made it to my ears regarding it. I don't think it was observed when it occurred.
Right.
But, you know, it's hard to imagine that the weather didn't play some role in it. But nobody's really solid determination yet.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be an insurance lawsuit about it, Brian. So.
Probably will be.
So, Jesse, you said that the marine layer sets up. What do you mean by that, and how do you know, how does that occur, and how do you forecast it?
Well, we have a circumstance during the summer, you know, due to the high pressure that sets up, where we have compression of the marine air mass, and basically it's tricky to forecast. You know, we have some equipment that's in place along the coast that enables us to ascertain how deep it is, and judging by how deep it is, let's say it might be 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet, we can then determine, based on the strength of the flow that's coming on shore onto the coast, how far deeply it's going to penetrate into our valleys. And that can have tremendous implications in terms of forecasting, because it can mean the difference between, you know, a high temperature in the lower 60s and a high temperature in the 80s. So, you know, monitor our high-res models are good for the most part, but we still have pretty tremendous issues forecasting the intrusion of the marine layer into our areas. So it's a big challenge in the summer, and it has big implications on aviation as well because of the impact it can have on San Francisco Airport, which is a major airport in our country, of course, and the marine layer can certainly impact operations there in a big way.
So, what mesoscale model works best, Jesse?
Well, sometimes the HRRR does a pretty good job, but we also run a local wharf model, like a lot of offices are doing across the country nowadays. And those two models, sometimes in unison, or sometimes they'll have different solutions that we can contrast with the actual observations that are occurring across the area to handle on what's happening.
And Jesse, how important is the thermal low over the valley in determining how that sets up?
Well, it's very important, certainly, in allowing us to ascertain the strength of onshore flow that's going to impact the area, and also for those rare conditions, during the fall when we have offshore flow, and that's when we actually have some of our warmest days in this part of the country, when we have offshore flow situations in the fall. And for people that are here and that are moving here for the first time or visiting, it's true. Our summers are cold, and actually the warmest part of the year typically here is the fall.
Yeah, I always surprise people with that question when I'll ask them, what the warmest months of the year are in San Francisco. And I think it's October, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, and certainly we had a pretty bad heat episode. It was in early October where we had several of our inland locations exceed 100 degrees. Folks, 100 degrees is not a big deal, but many of the homes in the coastal sections of Central California don't have air conditioning. So 100 degrees is a very big deal here because it requires folks to take preventative action in a big way.
Now, you mentioned all these microclimates. How do you deal with those in your gridded forecasts and things like that?
Well, it's a nightmare. It's very difficult to deal with. This challenge for our forecasters, and I tip my hat to them every single day for the work that they do. But certainly in the summertime, it's very difficult, and the placement of that marine layer is going to have on everything from basic high-low forecasts to fire weather operations forecasts that occur during the summer. As depending on where the placement of the marine layer is, depending on how deep it is and how much intrusion you get into the inland areas, that has been on firefighting operations. And we saw that very intimately this past summer in our area. We had the Soberanes wildfire, which was the most expensive wildfire in U.S. history. It cost $236 million to fight that fire. And that was primarily located over Big Sur in our area of responsibility. So understanding where the marine layer was going to set up, impact temperatures and relative humidity levels, and the wind was critical for firefighting operations.
That Big Sur area and Highway 1 is just beautiful, isn't it?
It's surreal. It's really gorgeous. We're very blessed to be so close to it, living where we do. But you get visitors from all over the world trying to check it out, and along with the beauty is also danger. It's a very dangerous place to visit if you're not being careful about how you're driving, but also some of the beaches and some of the flood issues that can occur in that area are also very dangerous. So there's some danger with that beauty, so we have to really monitor it.
I noticed in some of your messaging in the recent storm that you were cautioning people not to be out on the rocks and things because they could be washed out to sea.
Yeah, indeed. And the ocean in our areas, you might imagine, is a big killer. We can have circumstances on our beaches that are absolutely deadly. Even on beaches that appear to be relatively calm and benign, we can have very strong rip current risk. We can have what are known as sneaker waves, which are when you have a wave that intrudes onto the shore far more profoundly and deeply than you're expecting it to, and those can wash people away. We always advise people to never turn their back to the ocean, because it's absolutely true. A lot of people get washed away when they're not paying attention. So our beaches are gorgeous. They're beautiful. It's really a blessing to work near so much natural beauty, but they're also deadly, and that's a big part of our messaging.
How's your relationship, Jesse, with the media there, the television broadcasters and meteorologists? In the tornado-prone areas like where we are, it's pretty good because we're constantly working events. How's your relationship there?
I would say it's similar to what I've experienced at other National Weather Service offices. You know, we have certain media partners where we get along really well with, and then some where, you know, the relationship could stand some improvement. We work with two media markets. We work with the smaller one that serves Central California, the Central Coast, so to speak, and that's largely anchored in Monterey County. And of course, we have the Bay Area media, Francisco, San Jose. So it varies depending on the partner. At this point, I would classify it as good, but always in need of improvement. I would say that one of the biggest for me when I moved here, and I've been here for about a year now, was that before I moved here, people kept putting into my head, oh, you don't get any weather out there. You know, well, why are you going to a place that doesn't get any weather?
I thought you said San Diego.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, for better or for worse, I allowed that constant message to kind of impact my preconceived notions of the emergency management community up here and the media. And I'm so happy to say that I couldn't have been more wrong in terms of how engaged our emergency management community is here in Central California at the state and the local level. Our partners are smart, they're knowledgeable, they're weather savvy, and they really care. A great surprise for me personally, and I can say the same thing about the media partners as well. So it's really interesting in that regard, perception of the preparedness of an area to differ so dramatically with the reality.
Well, we're talking about the media. I was going to ask too, Bill. I'm sorry that you've got a direct mouthpiece to the world now with social media. How is social media use at your office? What platforms do you use, and how do you use it?
Well, we use the basic platforms, Twitter, Facebook. We've been in a test office for Instagram as well, and we've done some experimenting in that regard with those accounts. And, you know, you were mentioning conversations of the tremendous reach that certain offices have had, such as the Norman office, in terms of connecting. That's an area where our office needs to improve. And you would think that with having Silicon Valley in our area of responsibility, we would have more followers than we do. But I think part of the reason we haven't hit those numbers yet is because we have been in a drought for so many years, and when there's a drought going on, you know, there tends to be a significant decrease in weather activity over an area. But certainly we picked up a lot of likes and a lot of followers with this recent series of atmospheric river events across our area. So we expect those numbers to continue to increase, and to normal across California, you know, I would expect those numbers to increase as well.
So everybody listening to the show, go follow the Weather Service in San Francisco on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I've not heard of an office on Instagram. This is something new. You say you're a test bed for that?
Yeah, we're a test bed for that. And it's a very interesting medium, very visual, to find interesting ways to communicate your message via interesting things to look at. So it's certainly been a challenge for us to try and find those ways to effectively message using Instagram.
I think it's great, but what's happened with Instagram, they're trying to play catch up with Snapchat. And what these platforms do, they enable us to reach a younger demographic set that we would never reach on television. And now with Instagram stories, the way I use it, I post the best of the best of the best pictures sent to me of weather, sunrise, sunset shots, snow, whatever. But the stories that you can build, I use that to tell the weather story. That's kind of a new part of Instagram. That's worked out very well for me. And again, they're trying to copy to some degree what Snapchat is doing. But again, my comment on that, do we consider 18 to 24-year-olds important? Of course they are. Every life is precious. So if I can use Instagram and Snapchat to reach a younger demographic that would never watch television, then I'm all in. So I'm glad to hear that the Weather Service is dipping your toe in it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, and fully trying to reach, the future meteorologists that are going to play a part in messaging to the American public in the decades to follow. So certainly we have to do everything we can to reach all of our demographics.
So Jesse, James was talking about building a weather story, and I know Western Region offices have done a really good job, and I guess that's an initiative in that region, posting weather stories on the National Weather Service website. All right, talk about that for a minute, how that evolved, and is that, has that gained traction, and is that kind of what's playing into what you're doing with Instagram?
A little bit. We are still trying to find our way with Instagram a little bit, and certainly we have one forecaster in particular that has done what James referred to earlier in terms of the weather story creation within the Instagram app. And it's a very neat utility, but certainly not one that we have exploited as much as we probably could have. But in reference to your question, the Western Region office is certainly producing what are known as weather stories, informational graphic content that can hopefully explain in an easy to understand manner some of the complexities that are associated with forecasting what the atmosphere is going to do. And that's not an easy thing to do. I always tip my hat to those that are in the media for having to do what is very, very difficult, and that is narrow down into an understandable manner that the public's going to get incredibly complex processes that impact the atmosphere. So it's a challenging thing to do, but Western Region has been a leader in that regard over the years. So yeah, it's something we try to do, particularly if there's a big storm coming. We'll try to put an easy to understand informational graphic up that will hopefully get the message across in an easy to understand way.
So Jesse, do y'all grapple with the same social meteorologists like we deal with sometimes here in the central and east parts of the country?
Oh yeah, they came out in a big way during this storm, and I think unfortunately that's a consistent issue across the Weather Service. We had folks putting alternate scenarios that would try to contradict the message we were trying to put out. We were really trying to work towards consistent messaging in partnership with the media, in partnership with emergency management. And then, of course, you have the doubters that come out. If it's not raining or snowing as fast as they think it should have been, then they call you out and tell you your forecast is wrong, and much to deal with on social media as well. And it seems that it doesn't matter what you do, there's going to be somebody that's always upset about it, and to some degree. But training is to try and be understanding of those concerns and deal with them in a professional manner, because after all, they're all taxpayers and owe them a degree of service. So that's what we try to do.
But let's shoot straight, Jesse. They're not doubters. They're not doubters. They are either trolls, haters, or know-it-alls. And you can't say that, but I can. And we deal with the same people. So God bless you for having to. With the Weather Service, it's got to be all grace. I say this all the time. To deal with these people, it's got to be a combination of grace and sass. To survive, you've got to have this very interesting combination of grace and sass. See, the Weather Service can have no sass. They have to just be all grace, which is a lot better than me. You've got to have a little sass, a little bit of grace, and mix it in there. But no, we all relate to the trolls, haters, and know-it-alls. It's just the society we live in.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you put it that way.
Yeah. So you can't. I say the things that you can't say. I was going to let me change directions here for just a second, Bill, if you don't mind. You were kind of in a world where geology is a big deal. How does that fit in with meteorology? And one of the big pushes within the AMS, it's for us to be the station scientists. And when we take the exam to earn a CBM, part of this involves other disciplines. And you've been in quakes out there. I mean, this is earthquake country. So are you involved with that at all? Do you put out, do you work with the geologists, or is there any involvement at all with the Weather Service?
There's a big involvement in the sense that, of course, with certain types of seismic events, you can have a tremendous tsunami risk across the western coastline of the United States. So we work very closely with our communities to establish and tsunami readiness in all of our communities. And for our specific coastline, we have tsunami risks associated not only with seismic events that are close to our area and intimately involved in our own county warning area, but certainly if you could have, for example, earthquakes over the Aleutians there, can produce a tremendous tsunami risk across our area. We saw some tsunami impact on our coastline from the big Japan earthquake in 2011. So anytime there's a big quake around the Ring of Fire, as it's known, our antennae are up and we need to monitor what's going on. So we work very closely with the Tsunami Warning Center up in Alaska, and it's very critical in those situations that we are able to communicate in a easy to understand manner to our cities and our communities and our emergency managers what the exact risk is here. And that's a big challenge across our area, especially when you consider the cultural diversity that's present here and all the languages that are spoken. So it's certainly something we need to work on.
Now your facility is a big quake happens. What size quake can you handle and still stay in operation there?
Well, I think in most areas, probably handle up to a mid-5s and maybe even a lower level 6 in operations. We do have a generator capacity and we can keep going. And if you look at the history of the area, 5s can be handled fairly reasonably by most of the areas that are present around here, up to 6. But once you get beyond that, if we remember back to the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, that was a high level 6 earthquake. Once you start getting past 6.0, then you start to enter into catastrophe territory, and then it becomes very difficult to running. So we have to do our drills in place, and we have to have our backup operations with our backup offices running smoothly so that we can stay in business.
Who would back you up in case that were to happen? Would it be Reno or Seattle or Los Angeles or Portland or who?
Well, our California offices would have some backup responsibility for us. That would be primarily the Los Angeles office and Eureka to a certain extent. And interestingly enough, we back up Honolulu. So if we were to have a catastrophic type of situation here, and then something were to happen in Hawaii, then there has to be a secondary backup to handle the Hawaii issues as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you had a big earthquake where you are, could it affect Hawaii, Jesse?
Well, it could affect Hawaii in the sense that we would not be able to back them up like we normally would. So, we have the operational experience in place here to be able to back up the Honolulu office. But if we go down and then something bad happens over there, then you could have a less experienced office providing that service to Honolulu, and that could put lives at risk.
Now, Jesse, you talked about stakeholders early and having a greater diversity of it. You came from El Paso and obviously had a diverse stakeholder base there too. How is it different in San Francisco?
Well, I think it's different in terms of the landscape that's present both in the private and public sector. Of course, in the private sector, you have tremendous variance and also big money that's present here in the agricultural industry and the wine industry, Silicon Valley, finance that's present in the Bay Area. These are just big dollar industries and all with very different needs. Aviation is huge in this region. So it's a challenge to try and ascertain what we can do as a government agency to best support our public sector and private sector entities in that regard. And of course, the media market's huge up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support them as well. So that's, I think, the big difference. Big dollar, high profile types of industries and sectors that we're serving here Culturally, this is actually a much more diverse area than what, having served in El Paso, we have a tremendous Asian populations in the San Francisco Bay Area, Hispanic, big African American community as well, and we have to find ways to do for those communities.
So Jesse, when you think of when your stakeholders think of big events that have happened, you mentioned the earthquake in 1989. What other big events would they have in their memory that would be the red letter days, like the Oakland firestorm? What would be there?
Yeah, certainly wildfires, the Oakland, the fire that impacted the Oakland and Oakland Hills are a very big event. Flooding, landslides, rock slides, coastal issues. Anytime you get a big flood, it's not the type of thing that's going to get a tremendous amount of a big winter storm would, or a EF5 tornado outbreak or a Cat 5 hurricane, but flooding impacts can be tremendous, particularly in coastal areas. We have to take into account off into the ocean from our rivers, from our creeks. We have to take into account the tides as well, because if that's occurring during periods of high tide, it can impede the progress of those waters into the ocean. It causes tremendous flooding in our coastal sections. And also, if we have high tides occurring with heavy periods of heaviest rainfall, that can also cause coastal flooding issues as well for our big cities and our big populated areas.
So now you went to Arizona State, so you were a Sun Devil. So talk about the university, and I guess you can't talk about the university without talking about Randy Cervini also. So talk about your college experience.
Well, Randy is an incredible mentor. He is I would say the primary reason I'm in this business, because when I first met Randy, I was an electrical engineering major at Arizona State University, and I didn't know what my future held for me, but I knew that I hated electrical engineering. So I kind of came to a fork in the road, and I had to decide, am I going to continue in this field that I hate, or do I really want to pursue something that I love? So I asked myself, what do I love? Well, I love the weather and I love writing. So which of those two am I going to pursue? And I saw more of a potential career for myself in the weather. And that's when I went to Randy's office, and he spoke to me for an hour. And in that hour, he changed my life, because after that conversation, I became a geography major at Arizona State. And I eventually obtained a geography degree with a concentration in meteorology and climatology. So he was an incredible mentor to me. He remains a close friend to this day. And I can't say enough good things about him. Most recently, I got my master's degree in emergency management and homeland security, also from Arizona State, and I did that with the hope and intent of being a better partner to our emergency managers that we serve in this part of the country.
That's an interesting educational combination for a weather service person. Do you see more and more of that now today?
It's becoming more commonplace. I'm not sure where it is. I think it's back east somewhere. There's actually a combination meteorology and homelands and emergency management degree. I'm not sure where that is, however, but you're seeing emergency management programs both at the undergraduate and graduate level become more commonplace all over the country. I think you're going to probably reach a point where having a degree in that's going to be a requirement to be an emergency manager. I don't think we're there yet, but certainly I went through it. A lot of my classmates were emergency managers and first responders. It was an incredibly educational experience for me. I learned so much, and overall a great experience. And I feel like I'm a much better supportive kind of person for that community now, because I understand their issues and their challenges much more intimately.
Yeah, sometimes we hear that we hear rumors that there are conflicts between emergency managers and broadcasters sometimes in some markets. So it sounds like you might have a unique opportunity to bridge that. What can we do as broadcasters to mitigate that difference that might be there?
Well, I think it all comes down to relationships. I think that sometimes it's just a basic trust issue. you have folks in emergency management that maybe they provided a soundbite for a story one day and it didn't come out the way they had intended, and maybe they got in a little bit of trouble over it. There's some of that floating around out there. Sometimes there are issues prevalent in disaster response that are very sensitive. They don't want those to get out to everybody because it could create panic or result in a response that isn't for the public good. So I think there's little trust issues like that are floating around out there. But one really good way to mitigate those is to get everybody in the same room, talk about things that we all have in common, talk about issues and challenges that we all have in common. You have Weather Service offices out there that have created integrated warning teams with the purpose of making that happen, getting everybody in the same room and just talking about mutual challenges so that we can get on the same page and realize, hey, we're just trying to protect people. We're trying to save lives out here and together towards a good solution to make that happen.
Have you tried an IWT? I was about to say, have you tried an IWT meeting out there in San Francisco so far? No, you've been there for a short time. Have you tried it yet, Jesse?
We've had them on smaller scales. We had a big effort to put one together yet. We've kind of been struggling with what's going to be the challenge that makes that happen, and I think that challenge got dropped in our lap about a week and a half ago. So that's going to certainly be a good focus for us to get together in the future and discuss about what went right, what went wrong, where can we improve, and how can we serve people better.
I had the chance to attend a 2-day IWT. I think that's the granddaddy of them all. A 2-day session at Minneapolis St. Paul back in September of last year. And I thought it went over very well attended. A lot of great ideas were exchanged. And like you say, it's about building relationships. You can't trust anybody unless you spend some time with them. And for broadcasters and EMs, I just think in some cases we don't know each other, and it certainly is an important thing. I wanted to go back and quickly ask you about the culture and diversity. I've said this many times. You cannot effectively forecast the weather for a region unless you understand the people, the culture, and the geography. How many languages do you have in your CWA? Let's just start with language barriers.
I couldn't give you a good estimate of that if I tried right now. Obviously, we have Spanish language presence in our media markets that you would expect in terms of Telemundo and Univision. But we have tremendous Asian police in our CWA. And there are newspapers that are out there, these communities. There are websites out there that serve these communities, radio stations, an independent TV Francisco that the Chinese community. So that we're uncovering and trying out and figure out what we do here. How can we connect with everybody that serve? And for me personally, if there's something that I learned very intimately in the acquisition of my master's degree, is that the most impoverished and isolated people in our communities are the ones that are most likely to die in natural disasters. And when we talk about isolation, we talk about cultural isolation, physical isolation, sometimes financial isolation. We as an office, as an agency, need to get better at interacting with these at-risk communities in a better way. Because after all, we're here to save lives and property. If we're really going to save lives and we're going to be serious about it, then we really have to focus on the people that are most vulnerable.
And I'll agree. I think in our case, we've done a very poor job of reaching low-income and Hispanic families over the years, and we have to get better. Every life is precious. So the question is, how do you do that? Let's say you got a high-impact flood event, and you need to issue flash flood warnings. What's the best way you have to reach those, the masses in general, and especially those at-risk populations?
Well, I'm fortunate in the sense that I have a lot of experience dealing with Spanish language media and have had through the course of my career. So have improved considerably my office in dealing with our media markets here is in establishing those connections with the Spanish language media in the Bay Area. And we had quite a bit of interaction with this recent series of storms. We had Skype interviews, we had phone-in interviews. There was a a higher degree of communication between us and those media partners that had not been present in the past. So alone probably conveyed a lot more information than had been conveyed in the past. And if we can continue to work on those relationships to get life-saving information out, that'll benefit everybody. Have to get better is identifying these other sectors and these other communities that are present in the Bay Area. For that, we're probably going to have to work with that are present in the Bay Area to understand who these people are and what their specific needs are. Find ways to tap into community leadership that's present in those sectors so that we can make those inroads and establish those introductions.
How is weather radio use penetration there? Is it used at all or little, or a great number of people use it?
Well, the use is considerable, but weather radio is one of those things that there's differing opinions about in place. It's a legacy system that we offer and that we support, and we have to continue to support because it's one of our methods of. But as communications and technology improves, not to see a scenario where people are going to be relying on other things such as their cell phones and the cell phone alerts that so many people are getting nowadays as their primary way of getting information. A lot of people out there, especially our younger demographics, their primary way of getting information is through social media. As an agency, we have to be good at all of this stuff in order to be effective, and that's the challenge going forward.
And I guess you're out there in the land of Apple and everything else. So everybody's got a phone out there. So, and I guess, how does WEA work? I guess is that how mostly people get the warnings? Is wireless emergency alerts?
Well, certainly that's how a lot of people get them. And of course, a lot of folks still get them through traditional television, radio. And there's so many people, especially our younger taxpayers, that are getting them through social media. They get them through their apps. They get them through whatever functionality they're using on their phones to get their information. So it's becoming so much more of a challenge for our agency going forward to understand what's happening out there and understand how different people are getting their information, and that can be dependent on their language, their culture, their age, and their access to technology. And these are complex questions that we need to investigate and solve as government servants. So it's a tough issue to tackle, but hopefully in partnership with our emergency managers and friends in the media, we can continue to understand this situation that's developing.
So Jesse, does it become a competitive advantage in the Weather Service as you move up the management ladder to be bilingual?
Well, I'd like to think so. I think the important thing is to not upset people along the way too much. I think if you do a little bit too much of that, then that can certainly hamper your competitive edge. But the challenge for me as a bilingual person, as a person that speaks Spanish, is not to be pigeonholed into circumstances. I'm going to be counted on to do only that. And while I tremendously enjoy delivering information in Spanish and serving the Hispanic community, that's not the only thing I want to be known for. I want to be known for my leadership skills, my forecasting skills, and my ability to improve organizations. That's very important to me. So that's the challenge I think a lot of bilingual people in the Weather Service kind of face. You don't want to be pigeonholed into just doing one thing. We're all very talented. We all have a lot to bring to the table, and we all want to be recognized for everything that we do.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Jesse. That's really cool. So if you could, in this time of sort of, distrust and unease in the Weather Service, if you could click your heels 3 times, what would you do to change about the Weather Service right now?
Wow, that's
nobody at Western Region headquarters is listening.
Question.
Nobody at Western Region is listening. It's just us talking here.
No pressure at all, none whatsoever.
Yeah, no pressure at all. I think if we could somehow magically make the transition from where we are, an agency that has a proud history of being able to forecast and provide weather warnings. But that is at times, let's face it, and I say this with all the love in the world for my coworkers and everybody at Leeds the agency, sometimes we're not agile. We're not quick to adapt. We don't adapt as quickly as we need to pressing customer needs and technological advances. If I could somehow make that jump from where we are to where we need to be, that would be what I would do. But ultimately, that's our Achilles heel as an agency, I believe, is that we're not very agile and we're slow to respond. And subsequently, at times, we really get caught behind in terms of adapting to new technologies and customer needs. We try very hard. We're very proud and we care about the people we serve. But that transition is a struggle sometimes.
Well, it's going to be an interesting time in the Weather Service over the next few years, that's for sure. But with people like you and the agency, great things will continue to happen. I want to circle back and just ask a question because you raised the issue of tsunamis. Do you issue actual products that relate to tsunamis, that have them as a phenomenon in the VTEC?
Well, the tsunami warnings themselves are issued from there are various tsunami warning centers that are in place. The big ones up in Alaska, and they're the ones that primarily monitor what could happen down here. But certainly in terms of local messaging and talking about impacts and having that direct connection with our stakeholders and our media partners, that's going to come from our office because we're going to have the better handle, what a certain elevation or intrusion of a tsunami into a particular harbor and into a particular bay or coastline. We're going to have a much better handle of what that impact is actually going to be. So it's that kind of relationship. It's synergistic in that sense. But the really big thing we've had to do is work with our local communities to get them to understand what the risk is, and also to put plans in place to help people when that risk is present, to get them out of harm's way.
And I also want to circle back around to the current situation. Give us a drought update, if you will, Jesse. How you doing with the drought after all this rain?
Well, the drought circumstance has certainly improved in California. Actually, if you look at the latest drought monitor, the northern third of the state pretty much is out of drought. We still have significant areas of severe to exceptional drought over the southern 2/3 of California. So we still have an issue in the state. We've seen vast improvement from these series of storms we've had to deal with. Hopefully that'll continue on. We have 3 more shots of precipitation coming at us in the next week or so. But, we could stand a lot of improvement over the southern 2/3 of the state. But something to take into account is, okay, we have this, it's happening, but we still need to make up quite a bit of ground in terms of our reservoir storage. Our reservoir storage has improved quite a bit to the point to where many of the reservoirs in the northern half of the state are actually even slightly above their historical normals. But we have a lot of ground to make up in terms of our groundwater supply, which supplies drinking water for a lot of communities in northern and central California. That's an area where we have to make up a lot of ground. So the word conservation isn't going anywhere. That's going to continue to be a big theme for communities in the state in the years to come.
And another question, the move from El Paso to San Francisco, what was the biggest change for you?
Yeah.
Cost of living was a tremendous hurdle. Well, I'll give you an example. Actually, I should say cost of housing. The home I owned in southern New Mexico was a beautiful custom home, 3-car garage, about 2,800 square feet. I sold that when I left there for $315,000. Now here, I live between Monterey and Salinas, California, in unincorporated Monterey County. My home is a little under 1,200 square feet, and I paid $500,000 for it. Oh. So it's a big thing. Taxes are higher here, of course. But once you remove those 2 factors, everything else is kind of a wash. I mean, it's really not that bad outside of the cost of housing and an additional tax burden on the income side, on the state income side. So that was the biggest shocker, and that took quite a while to get over. We had to downsize quite a bit when we moved here. And culturally, it's a very different place. You have very different priorities here in terms of what people consider important. both politically and socioeconomically. So it's been interesting getting to know that and understand that, and to try and work towards serving that.
And a lot of young people listen to this show that are in high school, considering a career in meteorology. And I'd love to ask somebody in your position this question. What advice would you give, let's say, a high school senior that is looking for a college and looking to work for the Weather Service? It's a tight job market. What advice do you give them in terms of being competitive when it comes to finally being out in that job market?
Well, it's becoming more and more important to have a graduate degree in place.
Yeah.
I think if all you have is a bachelor's degree and you're trying to get a job in the Weather Service, it's going to be difficult. It's not to say it's not possible to get in, because you can, but when you're 66 to 75% of your competition has master's degrees, then you have to show that you have something else to contribute that is going to make that selecting official pick you instead of the guy or lady with the master's degree. I think another key component that is very crucial is you have to have the Weather Service experience, having volunteered at the Weather Service office, having worked closely with the Weather Service office in some sort of volunteer capacity or working with some project, or have some kind of private sector experience coming into it, either be in the broadcast media or emergency management communities. Those are things that you have to have just to get yourself to be competitive. Networking, as usual, is always a crucial component of all this. If you can establish relationships with people in the National Weather Service that are going to be able to vouch for you and say good things about you when you are applying, that's very important as well. So those are the things that, at a minimum, you have to have in place in order to be competitive nowadays. It's just it's a very vicious competitive landscape right now for people trying to get into the agency.
And here's the good hard question I love to ask. So I guess in about 5 or 6 days, the picture in your office will change from one man to another with the administration change. What do you see or have any idea how that's going to affect operations at the Weather Service?
No, we don't. Not at this point. We are under a continuing resolution, I believe, into March or April. So we know how much money we have to use for the time being to support our operations, and it's not much. Right now, things are very tight for most National Weather Service offices. And right now, we don't have a good feel. I don't know of anybody else that does, as to how things are going to change with this new administration and whether or not they're going to priority. I think that's to be determined.
Well, hopefully those that are listening can write their congressman or senator and let them know how important the Weather Service is. Well, Jesse, you've given us an hour of your time. We owe you one. We can't thank you enough. So to follow you and your office out there on Twitter, I guess it's twitter.com/NWS
Bay Area.
NWS
Bay Area. Yes.
So everybody listening, go follow them now.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks working really hard to put out some high quality content on that channel. So certainly an additional audience would be appreciated.
And the Instagram account, that's fascinating. When the show's over, I'm going to go follow you. So on Instagram, I guess you can just search NWS Bay Area there too?
Yes, sir. The exact same identifier. So
okay,
yeah,
that's awesome, because I'm not aware of any other office doing that. I'm sure there might be one or two, but that's fantastic. So again, thanks for your time, Jesse. I know an hour is a lot of time. You've given us that. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you joining us, and good luck with the active weather out there in coming weeks.
For having us, and anytime we can be of service, just give me a call.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jesse.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Appreciate that. All right, let's take a pause here for Weather Brains 101. Tony Rice in the Astronomy Report will come back with the weather roundup, picks of the week, and much more as Weather Brains rolls along.
Weather Brains 101 with Professor Peters.
The latest snow analysis showed that 49% of the lower 48 states were covered with snow. By the time we reach spring, that number will probably change. But snowmelt does become a concern as the warmer months approach. Snowmelt flooding occurs when the major source of water involved in a flood is caused by melting snow. The northern tier states and the mountainous areas of the U.S. are particularly susceptible to snowmelt flooding. Unlike rainfall that can reach the soil almost immediately, the snowpack can store the water for an extended amount of time until temperatures rise above freezing and the snow melts. This frozen storage delays the arrival of water to the soil for days, weeks, or sometimes even months. Once it begins to melt and does reach the soil, water from snowmelt behaves much as it would if it had come from rain instead of snow by either infiltrating into the soil, running off, or a combination of both. Flooding can occur when there is more water than the soil can absorb or can be contained in storage capacities in the soil, rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. High soil moisture conditions prior to snowmelt can contribute to snowmelt flooding. Rainfall during the late fall is particularly important because there is less evapotranspiration and less time for the soil to drain and dry before it freezes. Ground frost or frozen soil is another contributor. Deep, hard ground frost prevents snowmelt from infiltrating into the soil. Cold temperatures prior to heavy snowfall and normal or above normal soil moisture contribute to this. Deep snow cover can worsen snowmelt flooding since there is more water stored and available for snowmelt. Also, when snow cover is widespread, it usually keeps air temperatures cooler and delays spring warming, which increases the potential for more rapid snowmelt. Rain falling while snow is still on the ground contributes more water for flooding and helps to melt the snowpack. Thus, rain on snow events are watched carefully. Most often, snowmelt is a relatively slow phenomenon. Snowmelt rates are usually comparable to light or moderate rainfall. Important exceptions to this can occur, especially during unusually warm periods with high dew point temperatures and when nighttime temperatures remain above freezing. Snowmelt rates can be much higher than normal under these conditions, which can increase the risk of snowmelt flooding. So besides forecasting when and how much snow falls, meteorologists are called upon to account for it as it melts too. If you have a weather question, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
SpaceX successfully delivered 10 Iridium communication satellites to orbit on Saturday. The first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket was then flown back for refurbishment and eventual reuse. The whole thing was streamed live on the company's website, including touchdown on the drone ship off the California coast. Returning to flight after the pad incident back in September, which destroyed a Falcon 9 and its payload, is an important milestone for the company. But last week, a NASA safety panel expressed additional concerns about that incident and the fueling process that's been identified as the cause. The Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel is an independent committee which serves as NASA's primary advisor on human spaceflight safety. It's made up of 3 former astronauts, the Associate Administrator for Commercial Space Transportation at the FAA, and the head of the Navy School of Aviation Safety, among others. In that annual report released last week, the panel calls out SpaceX's plan to complete that fueling of the rocket while astronauts are on board. This is known as load and go in the industry. Currently, SpaceX must complete loading of the supercooled oxidizer within about 30 minutes of beginning that process, and that doesn't give much time to get astronauts strapped in. This reiterates concerns that were raised by the panel back in December of 2015, and again in October of 2016, when panel chair Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas Stafford expressed, quote, unanimous and strong feeling by the committee that scheduling the crew to be on board before the start of fueling is contrary to booster safety criteria that's been in place for over 50 years, both in this country and internationally, unquote. Now, whether or not these concerns delay plans for later this year to launch astronauts from the Kennedy Space Center aboard a SpaceX vehicle remains to be seen. Elsewhere in the sky, on Thursday, January 19th, the Moon and Jupiter will be separated by just 2.5 degrees. Air will rise after midnight and are visible until dawn. Mercury also reaches its point of greatest elongation on Thursday. This is the point where it's most separated from the sun in our sky. This is the best time to observe that planet. It shines very brightly, at about a magnitude negative 2.0. Mercury will rise roughly 90 minutes before sunrise for you. That's your Astronomy Outlook Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
We are doing this show on the 16th of January, 2017. I think one of the reasons Rick Smith is not here, he's tired of the haters. It seems as though for some, not for everybody, but for some, and this is always the case. The projected ice storm for parts of the Southern Plains underperformed, and for other parts it overperformed. But it seems like there was some griping in markets like Kansas City and Oklahoma City over the past few days. And that's just what we deal with. That's just part of the business. But a lot of people did see ice. Western Oklahoma really had a lot of ice out there in the western end of the state, and also parts of Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. So that's been the issue on the southern flank of that cold air, which is very shallow. The Deep South has been unseasonably warm. For those that are not watching, Brian Peters is in his Bermuda shorts, black socks, and flip-flops and tank top.
I'm going to go into male clothing design.
Could be a whole clothing line.
Yeah, a whole clothing line. Yes,
that's it. But I was eating at a restaurant the other day, and a guy walked in wearing a Weather Brains shirt. That was awesome. I think what we have now is working fine. The tank top and the Bermuda shorts, I don't know if people would wear that. But anyway,
Maybe
it's
we
been
could do a Weather Brains tank top, James. That might be
that's an idea, maybe in the summer. But it has been rather balmy across the southern states. Had some severe weather. It was kind of a scary situation, guys, last night in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yes,
where we had the Cowboys, Packers. They were trying to get out of there. The game was over. And wouldn't you know it, a severe storm came in from the south that was rotating like a top. And it produced a pretty good bit of damage. And that was just, you could just see disaster written all over that. But with a squall line coming in, the storm that was rotating seemed to weaken by the time it got up close to the stadium. It passed a little east of the stadium. And to my knowledge, there was no damage up around the stadium there. And Brian, have you been to that new stadium? I have not.
I have not been to the new stadium. No, sir.
It is spectacular. That huge television, you find yourself watching the television more than the field in the upper deck.
Yeah. Brian and I are old timers from Dallas. We've been to the old one.
Yeah, the Irving Stadium.
Yeah, the old Irving Stadium, and some of those. I've been to the ballpark at Arlington, but I've not been to the AT&T football stadium there. But anyway,
well, you know why they put the hole in the top of the old Cowboy Stadium, right, James?
Of course, yes,
yes. But the new one is totally enclosed, right?
I think so.
It has doesn't it have a retractable roof?
Maybe, I can't remember.
Oh, well.
All right. Dr. John Scala was happy about last night's outcome, at least.
Yeah, I bet he was.
I bet he was. Wow.
Most of us Mississippi State types were kind of pulling for the Cowboys because of Dak Prescott, but you can't take away the year this guy's had. I mean, and for him to drive back down there in the comeback at the end, that had to be one of the most epic playoff games in NFL history. No matter who you're pulling for, that was just tremendous. Yeah. And I just saw the highlights. I didn't get a chance to see it live, but what a game!
Haven't we had some great games with the college, championships? Well, they were great games, even if they didn't come out your way. I mean, I was rooting for the Cowboys. That one didn't come out my way, that's for sure.
But anyway, so that's kind of where we stand around the nation. And Aubrey obviously is not here for the email segment, so let's just do picks of the week, and I could actually go in here and get the show done on time, which will be a first.
Wow.
I can't recall the last time that has happened.
Neither can we.
Yeah, my pick of the week, it's the Marshall Space Flight Center data site from Huntsville, weather.msfc.nasa.gov. their Earth Science Office, and they have this really cool interactive satellite image page. And I know there's a million sources for satellite data these days, but that's still one of my favorites. You can go in and do zooms, really good high-quality zooms and loops, and it's just good stuff. So if you want to add that to your bookmarks of satellite image pages, that is a good one to have. So let's see if Brian Peters has a pick of the week.
I do. And my pick of the week has come about because I follow Greg Carbon on Twitter. And Greg is a great follow because he runs across things all the time. And I have to explain this. It's a sign on a light post, and it's got a phone number at the bottom. And I'm not going to give the phone number, but I love what it says. It says tax return preparer, computer repair, website design, hair braiding, and car for sale.
And weather forecasts.
Yeah. Greg referred to that as Maryland land of opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
And my pick is the WPC Probabilistic Winter Precipitation Guidance, which I think is a great site, especially in light of this tremendous winter storm we had in the central U.S., whether you got ice or you didn't. It's a great site for giving you some idea about snow accumulations and freezing rain and all that sort of stuff in a probabilistic manner.
Awesome. All right, Bill Murray, what you got?
I'm going to take the foghorn for my pick of the week, James. Thank you. I'm going to tie on a New Year's resolution starting next week. I'll do better. But I do want to point out, James, that next week we'll have the great Tim Marshall in a special Tuesday night show that we'll record right after the Central Alabama chapter of the National Weather Association holds their first meeting of the year at Vulcan Park. That's next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So we'll be recording right after that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be good. And again, we stress that is another Tuesday night special. I had to make a quick run to Nashville, Tennessee next Monday. So we're going to do the show Tuesday. And it just so happened Tim was where some of us happened to be. So we're going to make that happen. It's always a fun show. I think the last time I saw Tim, I was in Iowa somewhere. I lose track. When you get old, everything just kind of runs together. But we were sitting in an airport somewhere, and I want to say it was in Des Moines, Iowa. But he is a fascinating guest, and be good to have him on the show here. Hang on here.
From WeatherBrain's Worldwide International Headquarters, this is a special report. And now live from Worldwide International Headquarters, breaking news. A developing story. This just in. Continuing coverage. Coverage you can count on. Nobody gets you closer. Live, local, late breaking. Live, local, and up to the minute. More local, more news. Super duper double dip with sprinkles Doppler 99,000. News that matters. News you can use. The news source, where the news comes first. I-Team investigates. The Weather Authority. Because the action never stops. On your side, where the news comes first. Team coverage, the news leader. This is a special edition. Winter Storm Namegate 2012. Now here's your host, James. What?
Spann.
James Spann.
We got so many of these great drops. I just have to bring some of them back.
I wonder how many of those terms Frank Maggot coined. You'll have to ask him next week, James.
Yes, I need to take some of this stuff we did. In fact, what I need to do is open up my talk with this one.
Now, WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker. We track.
I dare you. I dare you.
So you can track along with us. Does that make sense? Here's WeatherBrains lead tracker, Kevin Selly.
I think they're the guys. I think they're the guys. So, I feel one of these guys out here, Brian, he said to me on our 4 o'clock news, and during the 4 o'clock news, we just have a little informal chit chat. He said, "Well, what are you tracking today?" And I lit into him. What did you just say? We're tracking the trackers that track the trackers. And I know some consultant, and I said consultant goob on the air. Some consultant goob wants you to say that. I'm not saying that. So, no, I don't play that game. But no, either Maggot will kick me out or put me in jail or something. So that'll be an interesting session here. So
you may hasten your retirement.
Yeah, I'm about to say it will be all over for me. So
the real question is whether I'm still working for you next week.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So I've got to go get ready to do some television here. So listen I get to wrap up the show. This rarely ever happens. Weather Brains is typically done Monday nights at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. You can watch it live. Most people watch it at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. But keep in mind, next week we're on a Tuesday night at 9:30 Eastern. If you want to get in touch with us, and we promise we'll have an email segment next week. We had some great emails this week. Aubrey is the email officer. Just send a note to email@weatherbrains.com. It goes to all of us, and we read as many as we can. Other than that, our social media accounts are up on the website, weatherbrains.com, and the show notes. If you hear a link or something we've talked about here, you can go back and find all the information there. Weatherbrains.com. And if you listen on iTunes, drop us a comment. Love it or hate it, we love those comments. So on behalf of the entire Weather Brains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a great week, and God bless.
It helps to do the ending when you have a musical bed to do it over.
Yeah, I talked it up. This is a 60-second bed. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you all. Appreciate you all working the holiday. That was a good show. I thought that was great. We need more California guys. Got some good feedback on social media during the show. That was good.
Good.
That was a great guest.
Great. Bill is the #1 guest booking officer in all the weather podcast world.
I'm the only one.
Yeah, but he's the only one. All right, guys. We'll see you all. Bye-bye.